involved in a church and you want to reach your members, this and coming generations effectively, which is why we're speaking to Dennis Kriel, a senior instructional designer and educational technologist, about how churches can use technology to stay relevant and reach these people effectively today and going forward. Hello, Dennis.
Good morning.
So good to speak to you this morning. And we're going to jump right into it because we don't have enough time for this conversation. We're going to start out as churches. So COVID happened. We did move an inch, that we got more involved with what the internet and everything has to offer. But there's more. I feel like very Mark, but there's more. Let's start talking about AI. You've had a few conversations about what AI is, and I think we need to start this conversation not assuming that people know. Explain.
Okay, so I think one of the big changes that's currently happening in the realm of technology is the disruptive technology that is artificial intelligence, specifically large language models as they're currently available. Now, you might have heard of Chat GPT or Bard or Meta, which was old Facebook, has released Lambda. So all of these are large language models that's been trained on basically huge amounts of data on how people speak. And, our knowledge bases, our books, our interactions on the internet, etc. So when you give it enough information, what's very interesting is that patterns appear within the artificial intelligence, that it starts to understand what you're asking it. It's not self-aware, luckily, but it is basically a pattern recognition machine. And from that, we get very interesting generative AI. So generative AI is when the language model or the image models, it can also be trained on images or music or video, is big enough that when you give it a prompt, which is basically when you're asking it to give you feedback, it now understands what you're looking for and it gives you something new. And that's what's so exciting is it's not replicating somebody's work. It is generating something from scratch. It is completely new.
We had to start with that because it's very much part of the options available technologically for churches to be relevant to where we're at the moment. And I asked you, what is out there and that can help churches keep up? And you gave me a few options.
Yes. So I think with generative AI, we've got three main possibilities for churches to use this technology to engage with their congregation. So I would say the first thing is generating content. So, for instance, it can be used to prepare for a sermon. Now, I would never just give over my sermon just to an AI.
Yes, please, because I heard people are doing at the moment. I want to preach on love.
Yes, and you can ask it, and I would, it's a great way to brainstorm, get some interesting angles to the topic that you want to preach on. But, at the end of the day, you need to listen to the Holy Spirit.
Thank you.
What you need to say to your congregation. AI can never take the soul away, but it can help. Yes, yeah. It is a resource, and it is very good at logically structuring information. So you could give it your thoughts, your random ideas of what you want to say and say, put this into a logical format for me. These days you can ask it to create your whole PowerPoint presentation for you from your prompts.
Oh, wow.
With images that it's basically generated for you. So for for not just images, but for generating new content, it can be very powerful because you can use this, give it specific Bible references, give it some concordances, all of those different data sources, and say, help me to summarize this information into a logical format. And it saves you a lot of time. So that's, I would say, is one of the first possibilities with generative AI. If you need a image that captures a specific text when you're presenting, you can give one of the tools that we use, for instance, is Midjourney, which generates images. You can give it that verse, and it will generate an image for you. Sometimes you have to ask it a few times, but it there's some beautiful things that it's generated in the past.
But this is now. You can use this for your sermon in church to enhance your sermon and to just help with conveying the message. But it's also generating content that you can put out there, because that's the thing that changed as well. You're not only busy with your people anymore. You now have the potential to use the same content that you are using for your sermon to put it out there on all social media and all the platforms out there. And I'm sure you can ask it to generate me a cover pic, generate me an Instagram pic, generate me, which will all, you can even give it to people before you have that sermon and lead them into what you're going to say, that they come there prepared, knowing what is, even expecting what is going, and having their thoughts going, and it can start a conversation. There's such a lot you can do with this.
Exactly. I'm so glad I can see your mind's going with all the possibilities there. So, that brings me to the next great opportunity there. So not just, generating content for your sermon or maybe for a children's ministry or a devotional that you want to send out, but communication. So it can really help with generating that content that you want to communicate, or generating in different formats. So, for instance, the Instagram or Shorts on YouTube or even TikTok or some of the other social media platforms, where the other day I'm working on a project called Father's Legacy that is aiming to work with fathers to raise their sons at what godly masculinity looks like, or a man looks like. And I had these great ideas that I wanted to communicate, and I asked it, I gave it a few examples of inspirational quotes that I wanted to generate for me. Then I had it generate a great image for me of a father and a son together, standing in the dusk, and you can see them both looking out into the vista. And then I said, from these quotes, using the Bible and as your source, generate more quotes for me. And it generated 60 videos for me in a matter of seconds. And they're all great stuff, because I gave it the initial content that I wanted to come from, the inspiration for it, and it understood what I was looking for, and it saved me hours of time. And I could now, send out those shorts on YouTube where people could, learn about what it stands for. So it's a great opportunity for us to communicate more effectively with the world out there from a church perspective. For instance, if you've got a database of people that's interested in coming to church, for instance, you can ask it to personalize the information for you. So here I have their name, maybe where they live, an email for them. Take the information that you can find on the internet about them, personalize the email for me, and send out 500 emails.
And each one of them is personalized without you having to one by one do this now.
Yes.
That's very exciting. And you can even start getting feedback from them.
You can. And I think that is one of the possibilities that you have then, is because you can communicate more effectively with your congregation and the people out there, we need to engage more. Specifically with the young people, we need to we need to find them on the platforms where they are.
Yes.
So we need to be creative, from a church perspective, to create viral content, create things that they can get excited about.
And it's not only about us preaching at them anymore. The interaction needs to be both ways. Yes. I mean, radio had to change like that as well. We had to adjust that the world wants their own say.
Yes.
And if you can empower young people, like for instance, now you've prepared them, you've sent out your videos, you've had it is everywhere that they're at, they see it, and now they want to engage. If you start asking them, so what's your opinion? And they come to church maybe, and you record them right there where they're at, and you put them on your socials as well. Now suddenly you've given someone a voice that doesn't have a voice other than when he's involved with your church. Suddenly the connection is made. Suddenly it's personal. Suddenly I'm invested in everything that I wasn't invested in, and I'm going to repost everything because it's moi face on that thing. It's a totally step up from what we did in the past.
And I think we need to make that mind shift change, that we need to leverage these technologies to scale the message that we have and make it more relevant to where we are. There are some influencers out there that are very effective in communicating ideas, communicating their thoughts, communicating their beliefs. And we need to take a page out of their book to what that means and how we can leverage generative AI to quickly generate the content at scale. And I think that's where it has great potential. The next thing that I think it has great potential in is, for instance, where people have questions. So that first interaction. They might go to your church website and they have a spiritual question. They might, it could be a logistical question as well. When is your next meeting? What's the dress code? I've never been to your church. It can be anything to who do I contact about marriage counseling. All of that information, sometimes people are, lazy to read, or the website doesn't, put it in a place where they can easily find it. And that's where artificial intelligence powered chatbots come in, where you can take a chatbot and you can train it with your information. And you can give it, even your core beliefs. You can train it with the whole Bible if you want to, in several different versions and translations. But that's then called narrow AI. So it's not open to everything that's on the internet and that the language models have been trained up, but because you want to give it a specific point of view. And your relevant information that people might ask it. So if you then put that chatbot on your website, they can ask all of these questions from it, and you can then have that gather their data for you, because they've already gotten value. So first you give them value. They might have a question on, what do you believe about baptism?
I like this. We've got a Christian chatbot coming up.
Yes,
it's a
there we
Christian
go.
chatbot, yeah.
So I've experimented with this. It works actually quite great, actually. Some of the other projects I'm working on is training up chatbots for specific subjects for school children. So, a history chatbot for, grade 10. And then it's trained on that data. So think of it when you go bowling. ChatGPT, for instance, is when you go bowling without the rails. It can go off onto the, into the gutter on the side because, it's called AI hallucination, where it thinks it's got the information, but it's not factually correct.
Yeah, or you asked it in a funny way and it doesn't understand them.
It doesn't
too
really
wide.
understand what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So you want to basically, specifically when it comes to questions on faith and those kind of things, you do not want to give the wrong information. And that's where you put the rails on. So that even though somebody might, when they ask the question, not verbalize exactly what they want, it won't go off the rails, and the ball falling into the gutter when you go bowling. So that's what I call more a narrow AI, where it's trained with your specific data that you want to basically convey.
I literally didn't know that was possible. That's very interesting. Possible. Okay. And then also if people have asked them, then they've made the first contact. If they want more information and want to speak to a person, then they can.
Yes. So you can maybe train it to say, after 3 questions from this person, ask them for their details. What's your name, your contact number, your email? Would you like to speak to us about this topic? Or if you pick up these questions, it could be around suicide, then put them in contact with this person as soon as possible.
And can the bot put me in contact? Like if it recognizes that there's a suicide potential in this person who's asking its question, can it be set up that bot lets someone know there might be something,
Well, I'm currently experimenting with that, how we can pick up certain themes within a conversation and then guide the bot to go to an interaction. Now, it won't really understand, but there might be some triggers that tells it, put this person in contact with this specific person as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wouldn't, again, you don't want to outsource the human connection.
Exactly. That's
because
that
what's
would be
important.
The first concern.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't want to outsource the human connection, but what you do want to do is you want to be able to scale, because churches don't necessarily have the capacity to answer all of the basic questions, be that logistics or be that about events and so forth. But they can use it to to guide people to the right place to connect with.
Yes, and actually, just get rid of the frustration of the 20 wrong people and then the
Exactly.
secretary, and then I've got to make an appointment, and then if it can direct you. I like the fact of getting hold of people's data. I know this is a big thing in the world out there. People misuse and abuse their data, so we don't want to give our data at all, but we've got so few people that in the churches are the active ones who take part in the conversations and serve and blah, 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 the 80-20 principle, that if we can have people connect in a way where suddenly they're more involved, and now they do get my mailer and they do get the notification of this next event that's coming up, if the information can be something that now links them in a more permanent way to the church, it can achieve much.
And that's exactly what you can do now. If they choose to engage, so they approach the church and say, I've got a few questions. I just want to see, I'm going through a traumatic time. Are there a place where I can connect with you? If you can then use the chatbot to do data enrichment, where, a lot of our young people are asking these questions because you've now got a log of what questions are being asked.
Frequently asked
questions. And you can then send out in your next email to your youth. You could send out an email that says, I see you, a lot of the young people are asking about vape. Is it the same as smoking or whatever? Let's talk about
What
that.
does the Bible say about vape? Wynand says our time is done. Dusted, klaar. Schluss vir heute. Okay, people need to really connect with you right now because obviously this is the tip of the iceberg. How do they connect with you?
They can go to DennisKriel.com. They can just send me a message. I've got something that I prepared for churches and people that's working in churches. It's just a document with some resources, links to tools they can use, and those kind of things. So just go to DennisKriel.com and get in contact with me, and I'll email you all of the information.
You did learn now, didn't you? He just offered you something, and now suddenly you can make a connection with the nudge, nudge, wink, wink churches. Hope you learned something. We'll be chatting more. Definitely getting this man in again.
Left is